Well, Daredevil delivers another episode called The Grand Design. I don't think that has anything to do with the comic book of the same name that Marvel did a while back, but in here, it somewhat refers to the Matt Murdock's Catholicism, his faith, and the fundamental foundations of his beliefs here about what he should do in the scenario he finds himself in. So this picks up due to the events after the last episode where Bullseye had wanted to take out, if not Kingpin, his wife definitely. And it looks like he succeeded at the end there, you know. So they're on the run, Daredevil and Bullseye. Bullseye is badly wounded. And so there's the back and forth between the two of them. And Bullseye is in this position where he just wanted, what he sees as justice is killing that woman. And he thinks that makes up for his sins. And especially against Daredevil, as he says, hey, I tried to help you, you know, and all this. And Daredevil says, shut up. But the whole thing, and as they go together about Daredevil, just leave him to the wolves. But he realizes this isn't necessarily the right thing to do. And of course, not just his religion, but his respect for law and order, and that sort of, despite the fact that he runs around in an outfit mask and is a vigilante, but nevertheless, these are the values that he's holding to. So he's not going to just leave him to the wolves. And of course, he would turn him over to law enforcement, but considering the situation, what would that be? It's all controlled by Kingpin, and of course, he wouldn't live to see a jail cell in that situation. But nevertheless, that's the thing. There's a chase, but there's also flashbacks between what you have are your two main characters, Daredevil and Kingpin. For Kingpin, it's flashbacks to the beginnings of his relationship with Vanessa, which they do utilize what was established in the Netflix series. And it comes into the rather minimalist painting that Kingpin was captivated by. And so they do a backstory to that about what led to the two of them coming together. And it was through that painting. And so they set that up and all this while she's struggling in surgery in the show. And I did see complaints about Kingpin is crying again, but well, look at the situation. I mean, for whatever he is, he's this monstrous, villainous man, but he is definitely in love with Vanessa, and vice versa. There's a very serious relationship there, despite the flaws in the affairs and everything. They're two peas in a pod, and of course, without her, it would crush him in a lot of ways, but it would probably unleash even more monstrous. And I don't know, maybe that's where they're going with this, that, the full monster will be unleashed, and that'll be his downfall because he can't rein it in. And that's how he'll lose ultimately. And meanwhile, of course, like I said, Daredevil's confronting this. So there's flashbacks of him and Foggy in their days, whom Bullseye had killed. And well, the flashbacks they did for Kingpin and Vanessa, those were okay. Also, his prime hitman, you get a little backstory of him as well in there. And then, but the setup and the makeup and whatnot was fine. For Matt Murdock, they gave him a bad wig to be the sort of younger days of him and Foggy. Working their law office and so on and so forth. And it's also, the recall of how forgiving Foggy was to this guy. He was very bad, but he understood his situation and was wanting to help him because he was as good as dead if he went to jail and stuff like that. And so that plays in to Matt's thinking of dealing with Bullseye. So ultimately, even when the opportunity comes, it's not really his fault. He did everything he could. He's not really responsible for Bullseye, and he's like, "Look, I tried," and that sort of, and still saves him, and then it ends with him bringing him home to Karen. Not happy about this at all, and of course, Karen, her story is that they've already set it up to where she's thinking more along the lines of Frank Castle. I think the Punisher's got the better idea of how to deal with this. And that's her attitude. Yeah. So you got the conflicts there. Like I said, last week's episode, or maybe I mean the week. Well, anyway, the previous episode was probably their best one they did. This one is pretty much on par with that. So maybe it's getting better as it goes, and it'll have a really spectacular finale for the season. That it's already just with those two. It's somewhat better than the last season by far. I mean, the last season was dogged by whatever they originally wanted to do, and they tried to fix it up with reshoots and reshot the first and last episode and stuff like that. Tried to polish it up, but it was still a mess. And the bigger problem was nobody showed up anyway. And I'm sure that's probably the same situation here. But the objective view of it, these two episodes are okay. And in some instances, pretty good. So, and he's Daredevil through most of the show. There's no Matt Murdock in here other than he is Matt Murdock, And so, yeah, it's an episode that weaves through flashbacks, and it's explaining the motivations and the foundations of the characters. But this is a better way of handling Kingpin than I think a lot of people were turned off by his appearance in Echo, which was ridiculous. And, where the whole thing is he's a crying little boy. And I mean, the original Netflix series establishes that this is his backstory. His father was abusive and all that. So these are some of the explanations for who he and what he is, but it doesn't, none of that excuses him, but it does explain, how he got to where he was. The choice of what kind of man he would be was always on him, and it is. But nevertheless, the pain and whatnot that he came from. And he said, well, he's still that little boy. Well, you're still that little girl. It's like, it doesn't. And what the idea is for Echo. And the preachiness that came in that sad show. But that's just because Kingpin cried in that show doesn't mean, well, he cried in this episode. You see, no, that's not a conclusive statement. I mean, his wife has had this shard jammed into her head. It looks really bad. It looks like a mess, and I won't spoil everything, but you can certainly understand him breaking down. And while he's barking orders at everybody because he's desperate to save her. The one way to get to Kingpin, that's the way to get to him, is through her. Other things he'll put up with and deal with and all that. But that, and then, oh boy, what happens next. And it may be. I don't know. In the comics, there was Vanessa got severely hurt, and he had to send her off to Europe where his enemies couldn't reach her, while in the hopes that she would recover and stuff like that. So it all fits in, and that is the nature of the man. His love for his wife is real. That's and can often be his most vulnerable aspect of him. He's always seen as powerful and manipulative and all that sort of stuff, and you get some of that. They don't really capture it in total the way the comic books did, and especially the actual Born Again story, which leaps and bounds blows this away. If you want to pick up a good Daredevil story, it's that one. There's others where he's more Daredevil. In that one, Daredevil is completely beaten down and broken and defeated by Kingpin, and then he has to claw his way back to the top, which he does, and ultimately defeat him, which would make for a better narrative. Here, you're not really getting that in this. But for what it is, these two episodes gloves off, and the grand design. I call it like I see it. Those two did a lot better. There's still all the templates of preaching and, gee, I wonder what the vigilante task force is really a metaphor, an allegory for. Hey, what's Kingpin? Even though considering the state of New York today, you would think it would be something entirely different. But nevertheless, yeah, that's all there. But in these episodes, the story and plot dominated. And so they were 2 good episodes. Doesn't really save the show, but if it's a sign that it's going to end well or it's getting better and it's finding its place, well, that would be great. I don't think it'll save it. They're going to do a 3rd season anyway, but overall, that's what I saw. That's my reaction to it. I saw they did a better job on these 2 episodes than previous efforts. So anyway, there you go. Daredevil Born Again, the grand design.